gotta do to make sure we fortified as a unit, but don't leave me mortified. If you'd have kept it 100, a brother would be more than fine. Gave you more than time, gave you some peace of mind. That's why I got some qualms about the way you treated mine. You came close to doing damage to my third eye.
So I asked my subscribers, most specifically on Discord, to give me recommendations of manga to read, and I imposed a few rules. I told them I would read the first 5 chapters of whatever they recommended, 1 manga per person, and can range from absolute trash to anything that they want. I took this idea from Alex, so the original video will be in the description. If you missed out on this opportunity, do not worry, I'll be doing the same thing but for manhwa, so be sure to join our Discord server so you can give your own recommendation in the future. Without further delay, let's get into the recommendations. The first recommendation comes from The Collector, and it's Ibitu, a horror manga. Now, I'm not the type to read horror manga all the time, but I do enjoy it once in a while. This story is about some kind of urban legend where a Lolita appears somewhere and asks you a question. If you answer, she will say that she's now your little sister and eventually kill everyone and everything. Of course, the main character answers and the story goes on from there. I did enjoy the story somewhat. There's some weird parts where the Lolita was trying to iron his actual little sister's private parts because she wet herself with fear. But I did enjoy it when she walked around with a sledgehammer on some AAA shit. Overall, I give it like a 6 out of 10 and I'll probably finish it since it only has 13 chapters. The next recommendation comes from Jesus, and he told me to read Radiant. Now, I've watched the anime of this series, but I never read the manga. I read the first 5 chapters and I really like it. This is a story about a world where monsters and wizards exist. While you may be thinking this is some sort of like dungeons type of thing, I would say it's more close to fairy tale than anything else. Now, I did enjoy the story, the art is amazing, and it's really close to the anime, at least from what I remember. One of the aspects that I did enjoy the most was the fact that there's no slow moments, it's very fast paced, so I'll definitely recommend this to anyone new to manga. I'll give it a fairy tale out of 10. The first Isekai of the day comes from Unknown303, as he asked me to read Izakai Picnic. Now, this is one of the few Isekais I haven't read, and I haven't watched the anime either, so I was really excited about it. As I read the first 5 chapters, I found out that this is an amazing work. The world building, the characters, everything is perfect. So the main character finds a portal to the other side. It's a different world where urban legends or myths live. And there she finds another girl. Now, while the manga can be a bit confusing in the second chapter, it kinda planes out and you'll understand what's happening. I really did enjoy this manga. I'm a huge fan of Isekai mangas, so I'll give this one an 8 out of 10. The next recommendation comes from Naruto-kun, and he told me to read Onanoko and not to go back on my word. And after seeing the cover, I know where this is going, and to be honest, I do not expect more from a Naruto fan. Now, I've read this is about a short guy and a bunch of tall girls on a volleyball team, and that's about it. The rest is mostly them getting into it, let's say. But my main question is, why would you make me read this? From all the manga that you have, you made me read this. That's fine, that's one of the rules. So I'll give this a big Y out of 10, and I do not recommend this to absolutely anyone. Now a recommendation by a deleted user, I hope you're watching. He asked me to read The Exiled Reincarnated Heavy Knight is Unrivaled in-game knowledge. Now, this is right up my alley, I really enjoyed it. This story follows a story of our main character that manifested a defective class called Heavy Knight. But he remembers from his previous life that it's the same as the game he used to play, and it's an overpowered class. The whole story so far is about him leveling up, gaining new statuses, new skills, and so on. Stories with game elements is something that I really enjoy, and I'm pretty sure I've recommended this work in a previous video. But even then, I really enjoyed it, and so thank you for recommending it. I'll give it a 8.5 out of 10. The next recommendation comes from Yodazo, and he told me to read What Do You Wish For With Those Murky Eyes. Now, this is an isekai that I've never heard about. Like most isekais, after a few chapters, the story is driven by something else other than the fact that the main character was reincarnated. And this story is about war. The main character reincarnates as a poor person, and to make ends meet, he decides to join the army. Now, there's still some type of magic, but so far it's not really a huge plot point. Now, the art is amazing, the fights are absolutely stunning, so I definitely recommend any of you reading this. I'll give it Everybody's Getting Slashed Away out of 10. The next recommendation comes from one of our mods, Overtime 2.0, and he recommended Dan Dan Dan. And honestly, this work is absolutely amazing. It's a mix of horror, funny, and wholesome. A story about two friends on a mission to exorcise spirits or ghosts and defeat aliens. The best thing about this work is uniqueness. The unique characters, unique plotline, and unique world building. And overall combined, it makes for an exciting read. I read only 5 chapters as per the rules, but I'll be sure to read more as soon as I can. I'll give this one a 9.1 out of 10. The next recommendation comes from Ritzy Dog, and he told me to read Killing Me, Killing You. And I've read this, I've recommended this, so I'll make this short. This story is set up in a world where most of the population has died due to a catastrophe, except for some people who have become immortal. And the story follows Mithya and Youth, both immortals who are trying to search for a way to die. Of course, this leads to funny situations or even sad moments. But what sets this work apart from the others is truly its setting and uniqueness. I give this one a 9 out of 10. The next one is Tengen Hero Wars by Star-Lord 007. Now this one gives me the vibes of Records of Ragnarok, but instead of having heroes battle gods, this time you have our main character, which is a normal human, battling against other heroes. Now, even though I only read 5 chapters and there's only 10 out, I do feel like this story has an amazing potential, just like Records of Ragnarok. The art is beautiful, the representation of war heroes is quite different, and pair that with the tactics and the intelligence of our main character, I really enjoy this story. I'll give it a let's wait and see out of 10. The next recommendation comes from Oth, and he also recommended me an Isekai. You know, my moderators know what I like. The name is I Become a Rogue Lord in a World Where Only I Can Level Up. Now, to give you a quick rundown, the main character is a young man who earned first place on the leaderboard of a strategy game. And when he does, the management decides to reincarnate him in the world of the game itself. Now, as this one, we've seen many, but this one is more focused on world building, kingdom domination, war, that type of stuff. And while I did enjoy it a lot, this one is quite heavy on text. Nonetheless, this is something that I would definitely recommend on my channel, so I would give it a like 7.5, 8 out of 10. The next one comes from Merc, and he told me to read The Angel Next Door Spoils Me Rotten, and he told me that it's to cleanse your heart from all the dark core action they might recommend. And he was definitely right, they did recommend me that, and this manga did cleanse my heart. So this story is about Amane, the most beautiful girl in school, and Mahiro, who lives just next door. It's a comedy romance slice of life and something that I really enjoyed. It's a peaceful story and wholesome at times that doesn't have any action or crazy plot twists. It's a really nice story for the fans of the genre, and me who doesn't have much knowledge in this area, I would still give it a 10 out of 10. Perfect story. Next up, we have the recommendation of Otaku. He told me to read The Millennium Alchemist, but since that's a manhwa, I went to the second recommendation, Oshinoko. I've actually heard a lot about this manga, and it's getting an anime adaptation starting this month. Now, the story is quite complex. This is about an idol who's pregnant at 16, and her doctor who is a fan. He decides to keep it a secret, but on the day of the delivery of the babies, he gets killed, but he's reincarnated as one of the twins. Now, even though this story might sound chaotic and quite strange, it's actually quite good. It was quite underrated for a long time, but I feel that now that it's getting an anime adaptation, people are paying more attention to it. I would definitely recommend this on my channel, and I'll give this one a 9.7 out of 10. Next up comes a recommendation of A Eating Goat, and he told me something about the worst manga that he read called Wolf Guy. So of course I give it a try. Now I wouldn't say this is the worst I've read, but it's not that good, not that bad. As you may have guessed by the name, the main character is a werewolf, and he goes on fights and whatever. Now a few things that I gotta say. First of all, the art is quite old, which I like, but it's also quite dark. The story is extremely violent with gore everywhere and people dying often. And overall, I've heard that the story is quite depressing, but since I've only read 5 chapters, I cannot say that it is or not. So with all of that in mind, I'll give it a Twilight out of 10, and you can make your own conclusions. Next up we have a recommendation by Tofu. He told me to read Mashal, and I've read this and recommended it on my channel, so I'll make this short. Now this story is a comedy battle shonen manga that makes a parody out of Harry Potter. The main character is a person who can't use magic, so instead he turned his muscles and now is jacked. Because of some reasons he gets sent to the magic school, and that's where our story begins. I really like the story. The comedy is amazing, the fights are insane, and everything about it is just good. Just for you to get an idea of how good it is, it's getting an anime adaptation this month as well. So I'll give this a Harry Potter out of 10, and you should probably go and read the manga and watch the anime. Nihonkoku Shokan, or Japan Summons. That's a recommendation by Tipses, and if I had to describe this manga in one sentence, it would be: why send just one person to another world? Let's send the whole islands of Japan. This is what this work is about. The whole of Japan gets summoned to another world, this world being your normal medieval world full of different creatures, different races, all of that jazz. Now, there's no main character specifically. This is just a bunch of events and a bunch of action and wars, which I quite liked and I quite didn't. I like the fact that it's not focused on anyone, but the fact that it just war over and over again every single chapter, it gets quite boring quite fast. But it's still a decent manga. Be careful though, there's some gruesome parts, let's say. Overall, I did enjoy the read, and this is something that I'll probably read on my off time, so I'll give it a 7 out of 10, and I'll recommend it to you guys as well. Next up is a recommendation of Fault, and he told me to read Blue Lock. I've watched the anime, I've read the manga, this is an absolute banger. If you're like me and you like sports anime or sports manga, this one is perfect, everything about it. The characters are well made, the story is beautiful, and the pacing is also really good. Without a doubt, one of my go-to recommendations if you like sports manga or anime, so I'll recommend anyone to watch it. Thank you Fault for recommending it, and I'll give it a 10 out of 10. The next recommendation is Rosengarten Saga by Nard Ardensen. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce that right. Now this manga was a wild ride. It starts off with explicit sex from the beginning, a village that gets ambushed by bandits and everybody's getting the R word, and then a girl gets a sword and she transforms people into girls or men into girls. It's a wild manga. But I can't say it's bad. If you look at it from the perspective that it's a parody, this one is actually one of the best I've seen. Of course, if you don't like the type of degenerate or sexual comedy, then this manga won't be for you, but if you do like it, well, give it a try. I'll give this one a what the fuck is going on out of 10. This manga was recommended by Shadow Reaper, and it's called Die Dark. This is about a teenage boy, Zaha, who possesses terrible powers, and his bones are said to grant wishes. He, along with Avakian, his skeletal buddy, let's say, are searching for whoever put that curse in Zaha's body, along with trying to not get killed. While I quite enjoy the story and the art, at least for the first 5 chapters, I don't see much to it. Let's say that the story is enjoyable and quite different, but it's not out there, if you know what I mean. So I'll give this one a 7 out of 10, but still thank you for the recommendation. This recommendation comes from Kunlun, and it's called The Kingdoms of Ruin. Humanity lived in peace with witches until some scientific civilization decided that they are no longer necessary, so they started a witch hunt. The story follows Adonis, a witch's apprentice that saw her getting killed in front of him. Let me start by saying that I really like this story. From the first chapter, it grabs you and it gets you hooked on what is happening. Of course, seeing the main character's revenge and trying to destroy everything and everyone is amazing as usual, but something about the characters makes it different from the others. Without a doubt, something that I would definitely recommend, so you guys give it a try. I'll give it an 8 out of 10. Next recommendation comes from Ichikai Yuma, and he told me to read Isekai de Sekai Tori. Now, I've read this manga, and I can tell you right now, I do not like it. First of all, the name it's not actually Isekai, it's Sekai, because this is definitely not an Isekai. Now, I'll tell you the reasons why I do not like it. First of all, the MC is super dumb. Like, I'm not even joking, like, he's insanely dumb, and at some point you wonder, is this not enough? So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I definitely do not like it. The second one is the power levels. Now, it's definitely not uncommon to see different power levels and some weird things in this type of works, but this one takes the cake. The main character is level 100 and has like a 99 level swordmanship, but he still struggles against levels 50s. It does not make sense. I totally get you wanting some close fights so you can get some tension, but it's just not it. If you want, just make an overpowering character that just absolutely destroys everybody. Overall, I do not like it. I'll give it a 2 out of 10 and I'd rather read the entire for the rest of my life. The next recommendation comes from a new member on our Discord server, Orochi, and he recommended me to read Rebuild World. This is a type of sci-fi, post-apocalyptic fantasy world, where people called hunters look for relics so they can sell them. Now, this may look like your normal hunter type of story, but it's very different. There's no systems or anything like that, this is not dungeons, this is not all of that. And because of that, I quite enjoy this work actually. So thank you Orochi for recommending it. I read the first 5 chapters and I really like it. I'll give it a 6 out of 10 just because I don't know what's gonna happen next. Next recommendation comes from Kodai, also a new member, and he told me to read Ragnar Crimson. I've read this work, and I have recommended it in a past video. I don't want to give too much away though, so I'll make it quick and short. Whatever you're doing right now, stop it and go read it. This is an absolute amazing work and I cannot stress out how good it is. I'll give it a quick masterpiece out of 10, so go read it right now. Pretty much like the last one, I've read this work already. Adriatico recommended me to read Tonganaki. This is a child between Jujutsu Kaisen and Demon Slayer and it's really good. Obviously, since it's a shonen, it follows the stereotypical shonen genre, but that doesn't mean it's bad. Also, the art is absolutely stunning, so this is definitely something I'll recommend you to read it if you haven't. Overall, a very good work, so I'll give it a 9 out of 10. The last recommendation comes from Yatogami, and he told me to read Kitaku Tochu. This is some type of fantasy world, but also it's the normal world, where a lot of species besides humans coexist. 40 years ago or something, 2 spaces collide, and that's when another species came to be on Earth. Now the story follows this delinquent looking high school boy who saved 2 twins from a dragon girl, and now he's their father. Now, while this manga is not like groundbreaking or anything, it's still a cute little story, and it does showcase some genuine parenting struggles. Overall, it's a nice story to read if you don't have anything else to do, so I'll give it a 6 out of 10 and I hope you do enjoy it if you read it. This is it for me for this video. I hope you guys like this type of video. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to join the Discord server so you can give your own recommendations to me in the future. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.